Change is the most sought-after currency in the world of personal growth, yet it remains elusive for most. The truth is simple, but it's not easy. Nothing in your life will change until you force yourself to take action. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, and fill your mind with endless motivation, but if you don't move, nothing moves. The world is full of people who talk about what they want, who dream about a better future, who make promises to themselves that tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow never comes for those who wait. The only thing that separates those who transform their lives from those who stay stuck is the willingness to act, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when every fiber of your being wants to delay. Action is the great equalizer. It doesn't care about your background, your resources, or your past failures. It rewards only those who dare to move, who are willing to step into the unknown without a guarantee of success. The harsh reality is that most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect moment, the right mood, the surge of motivation that will finally push them forward. But that moment is a myth. The people who grow, who rise, who achieve are not the ones who wait for motivation. They are the ones who act before they feel ready. They understand that momentum is not a gift, it is a product of movement. The first step is always the hardest, but it is also the most powerful. It is the moment you reclaim control over your life, the moment you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the architect of your destiny. If you want to change, you must accept this truth. Action is everything. It is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. It is the only antidote to regret, the only way to silence the voice of doubt, the only path to real, lasting transformation. Stop waiting, stop planning, stop promising yourself that you'll start tomorrow. The only time you have is now. And the only way to change your life is to move right now, not later, not when you feel like it, but now. That is the truth about change. That is where your new life begins.
The greatest illusion in the pursuit of personal growth is the belief that motivation is a prerequisite for action. This myth is responsible for more wasted years, more abandoned dreams, and more silent regret than any external obstacle ever could be. People wait for motivation as if it were a train scheduled to arrive, as if one day they will wake up with a surge of energy and clarity that will finally make everything easy. But motivation is not a reliable companion. It is fickle, fleeting, and often absent when you need it most. The cost of waiting is measured in lost time, missed opportunities, and the slow erosion of self-belief. Every day you wait for motivation to strike, you reinforce the habit of inaction. You teach your mind that it is acceptable to delay, to procrastinate, to let another day slip by without progress. This is how years are lost, one unmotivated morning at a time. The truth is, motivation is not the engine of action. It is the result. It is the reward you earn after you have already moved, after you have already pushed through resistance, after you have already done the thing you did not want to do. The people who achieve, who grow, who build lives of meaning and impact are not those who feel motivated every day. They are those who have learned to act in the absence of motivation, to move forward when their mind is screaming for comfort, to do what needs to be done regardless of how they feel. The cost of waiting is not just external, it is internal. Every promise you break to yourself, every goal you postpone, every action you avoid chips away at your confidence. It creates a gap between who you are and who you want to be, a gap that widens with every day spent waiting. Eventually, you begin to doubt your own word. You start to believe that maybe you are not capable, that maybe change is not possible for you. But this is a lie. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the decision to act, now, not later. The cost of waiting is a life half-lived, a future sacrificed for the comfort of the present. If you want to win, you must stop waiting and start moving. Motivation will follow, but only if you lead. The world belongs to those who move before they feel ready. This is the secret that separates the achievers from the dreamers, the doers from the talkers, the fulfilled from the frustrated. Readiness is a mirage, a comforting illusion that keeps you safely on the sidelines while life passes you by. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. The truth is, you will never feel fully prepared for the challenges that matter. Growth, by its very nature, demands that you step into uncertainty, that you act in the presence of doubt, that you move forward even when your heart is pounding and your mind is filled with questions. Acting before you feel ready is not recklessness, it is courage in its purest form. It is the willingness to trust yourself enough to begin, even when the outcome is unclear. It is the decision to value progress over perfection, to prioritize movement over comfort, to choose action over endless preparation. The most successful people in any field are not those who waited for the stars to align. They are those who started with what they had, where they were, and figured out the rest along the way. They understood that clarity comes from engagement, not contemplation, that confidence is built through action, not anticipation. When you act before you feel ready, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. I am the kind of person who moves. I am not a prisoner of my emotions. I am not held hostage by fear. I am a creator, a builder, a force for change. This shift in identity is transformative. It breaks the cycle of hesitation and overthinking. It turns anxiety into energy, fear into fuel, and doubt into determination. Every time you take a step before you feel ready, you expand your comfort zone. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you imagined. You build a track record of courage that compounds over time, making each subsequent leap a little less daunting. The power of acting before you feel ready is the power to shape your own destiny. It is the antidote to regret, the foundation of resilience, and the birthplace of all meaningful achievement. If you want to change your life, stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting to feel ready. Move now and let readiness catch up to you. That is how you build a life that is truly your own.
Excuses are the silent assassins of potential. They're the stories we tell ourselves to justify inaction, the rationalizations that make us feel better about not moving forward. Excuses are seductive because they offer comfort without consequence, at least in the short term. But over time, they become the chains that hold us back from everything we could become. Every excuse, no matter how convincing, is a brick in the wall that separates you from your goals. The more you indulge them, the higher the wall grows, until your dreams are nothing more than distant echoes on the other side. The danger of excuses is not just that they delay progress, but that they erode your sense of agency. When you blame circumstances, other people, or bad timing, you hand over your power. You become a spectator in your own life, waiting for something outside yourself to change before you take action. This mindset is a trap. It keeps you stuck in a loop of frustration and disappointment, always searching for the perfect conditions that never arrive. The truth is, there will always be a reason not to act. There will always be obstacles, distractions, and moments of doubt, but none of these are valid reasons to stand still. Excuses are easy. They require no effort, no discipline, no courage. Anyone can come up with a reason to wait, to delay, to avoid discomfort. But every time you choose an excuse over action, you reinforce the habit of quitting.
You teach your mind that it is acceptable to break promises to yourself, to settle for less, to let your potential go unused. Over time, this becomes your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through, someone who can't be trusted with their own dreams. This is the real cost of excuses, not just lost time, but lost belief in yourself. But the good news is that you can break this cycle. The moment you get tired of your own excuses, the moment you decide that your future matters more than your comfort, everything changes. You reclaim your power. You take responsibility for your life. You stop waiting for the world to change and start changing yourself. Excuses lose their grip the moment you choose action over avoidance. That is the turning point. That is where growth begins. If you want to unlock your potential, you must declare war on your excuses. Refuse to let them dictate your destiny. Choose action every time and watch your life transform. One of the most persistent lies we tell ourselves is that there will be a perfect moment to begin. We imagine a future where the stars align, where our energy is high, our schedule is clear, and our confidence is unshakable. We convince ourselves that when that day comes, we will finally take action, finally pursue our goals, finally become the person we want to be. But the perfect moment is a myth, a comforting fantasy that keeps us trapped in perpetual preparation. Life does not pause for us to feel ready. The world does not wait for us to gather courage. Time moves forward, indifferent to our hesitation. The myth of the perfect moment is seductive because it allows us to avoid discomfort. It gives us permission to delay, to plan endlessly, to wait for conditions that will never exist. But in reality, every moment spent waiting is a moment lost. The truth is, the conditions will never be perfect. There will always be uncertainty, always be obstacles, always be reasons to postpone. If you wait for everything to feel right, you will spend your life on the sidelines, watching others move forward while you remain stuck in place. The people who achieve, who grow, who make an impact are not those who waited for the perfect moment. They are those who acted in spite of imperfection. They understood that progress is messy, that growth is uncomfortable, that the path to success is paved with uncertainty. They moved forward with what they had, trusting that clarity and confidence would come through action, not before it. They refused to let the myth of the perfect moment rob them of their future. The cost of waiting for perfection is not just lost time, it is lost opportunity, lost momentum, and lost belief in yourself. Every day you delay, you reinforce the habit of hesitation. You teach your mind that it is acceptable to wait, to hold back, to let life pass you by. But the moment you reject the myth of the perfect moment, the moment you decide to act now, everything changes. You take control of your destiny. You prove to yourself that you are not a victim of circumstance, but a creator of opportunity. The perfect moment is not something you find. It is something you create by moving forward, even when it feels imperfect. That is the only way to build a life of meaning, progress, and fulfillment. Momentum is the invisible force that turns small beginnings into unstoppable progress. It is the compound interest of effort, the reward for those who dare to move before they feel ready. The secret to building momentum is simple: act immediately. The longer you wait, the heavier the task becomes. Hesitation breeds doubt, and doubt breeds paralysis. But when you act quickly, when you seize the moment before your mind has a chance to talk you out of it, you ignite a spark that can grow into a blazing fire of achievement. Immediate action is not about recklessness. It is about refusing to let fear and overthinking steal your future. Every time you act without delay, you send a message to your subconscious that you are a person of movement, not just intention. This is how you break the cycle of procrastination. You don't wait for the perfect plan or the perfect mood. You take the first step, however small, and let that step create the energy for the next. Action creates clarity. Action creates confidence. Action creates results. Nothing else does. The power of momentum is that it makes the next move easier. When you start, even with something tiny, you shift your state from passive to active. Your brain stops searching for reasons to wait and starts searching for ways to continue. Each completed action, no matter how minor, builds a sense of accomplishment. That sense of accomplishment fuels your desire to keep going. This is why the most successful people are not necessarily the most talented or the most intelligent. They're the ones who have mastered the art of starting, again and again, without waiting for permission. Momentum is fragile at first. It must be protected from the voices of doubt and the temptations of comfort. But as you stack small wins, it grows stronger. It becomes a force that carries you through resistance, through setbacks, through days when motivation is nowhere to be found. The key is to never let a day pass without taking at least one step forward. Even on your worst days, even when you feel stuck, do something, anything that moves you closer to your goal. Over time, these small actions accumulate into massive change. Momentum is not a gift, it is a habit, and it is built always through immediate action.
Inside every person lives a voice that whispers the easy way out. It tells you to rest when you should rise, to delay when you should decide, to seek comfort when you should chase growth. This lazy voice is not your enemy, but it is not your friend either. It is the ancient part of your mind designed to keep you safe, to avoid risk, to conserve energy. But in the modern world, this voice is more likely to sabotage your progress than to protect you. If you listen to it, you will find yourself stuck in a cycle of avoidance, always choosing what is easy over what is necessary. The lazy voice is clever. It disguises itself as reason, as self-care, as patience. It tells you that you deserve a break, that you can start tomorrow, that you need to wait for the right mood. But deep down, you know the truth. You know that every time you give in to that voice, you move further from your goals. You know that comfort is a trap, that the path of least resistance leads nowhere worth going. The lazy voice is loudest when you are closest to a breakthrough, when you are on the edge of growth. That is when it fights hardest to pull you back into the familiar. Overcoming the lazy voice is not about silencing it forever. It will always be there, always offering you an exit. The key is to recognize it for what it is, a test. Every time you hear it, you have a choice. You can obey or you can override. You can let it dictate your actions or you can act in spite of it. The strongest people are not those who never feel lazy. They are those who move anyway. They have trained themselves to act before the voice grows too loud, to take the first step before doubt has a chance to build momentum. The more you override the lazy voice, the weaker it becomes. Each act of discipline is a vote for the person you want to be. Over time, you build a new default, a mind that expects action, a body that moves on command, a spirit that refuses to settle. The lazy voice will never disappear, but it will lose its power, and in its place, you will find a new voice, the voice of discipline, the voice of self-respect, the voice that says, "I move, no matter what." That is the voice that builds a life of achievement. The true measure of strength is not found in moments of ease, but in the crucible of resistance. Anyone can act when they feel inspired, when the path is clear, when the world seems to cheer them on. But the real test, the one that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, comes when you least want to move. It is in those moments, when your energy is low, your mind is clouded with doubt, and your heart is heavy with hesitation, that your character is forged. This is where discipline is born, where confidence is built, and where your future is decided.
Acting when you don't want to is not about forcing yourself through sheer willpower every single day. It is about honoring your commitments, even when your emotions rebel. It is about understanding that your feelings are not always aligned with your goals, and that progress often demands you move in spite of discomfort. The most successful people are not immune to laziness, fear, or fatigue. They simply refuse to let those feelings dictate their actions. They have learned that the first step, taken in defiance of resistance, is the most powerful move they can make. Every time you act when you don't want to, you send a message to yourself. I am in control. I am not a slave to my moods. I am the architect of my destiny. This act of self-mastery compounds over time, transforming your identity from someone who waits for the right moment to someone who creates it. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. What once felt impossible becomes routine. What once required immense effort becomes second nature. The real test is not how you perform on your best days, but how you show up on your worst. It is easy to move when you are motivated, but it is essential to move when you are not. That is where the gap is closed, where the old version of you is left behind, and where the new, stronger you is born. If you want to build a life of meaning, you must learn to act when you least want to. That is the ultimate discipline. That is the foundation of greatness. And that is the habit that will carry you through every challenge, every setback, and every moment of doubt. Move, especially when you don't want to, and you will become unstoppable.
Most people do not fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail because they remain stuck in a cycle of hesitation, overthinking, and avoidance. The tragedy is not that they are incapable, but that they never force themselves to break free from the inertia of comfort. They spend years planning, talking, and dreaming, but never take the uncomfortable steps required to move forward. The result is a life of quiet frustration, a life where potential is wasted and regret becomes a constant companion. Staying stuck is rarely a conscious choice. It is the product of small decisions made every day. The decision to wait for motivation, to avoid discomfort, to postpone action until conditions are perfect. Over time, these choices become habits, and those habits become identity. You start to see yourself as someone who never finishes what they start, someone who always finds a reason to delay, someone who is always waiting for a better time. This self-image becomes a prison, locking you into patterns of inaction that are hard to escape. The world is full of people who are busy but not productive, who are always preparing but never executing. They write lists, set goals, and make promises to themselves, but when it comes to act, they retreat into the safety of planning. They convince themselves that they need more information, more time, or more confidence before they can begin. But the truth is, clarity and confidence are not prerequisites for action. They are the rewards. You earn them by moving, by doing, by facing the discomfort head-on. The longer you stay stuck, the harder it becomes to move. Each day of inaction adds another layer of doubt, another excuse, another missed opportunity. Eventually, the pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of change, and only then do some people finally act. But you do not have to wait for frustration to reach its breaking point. You can choose to move now, to break the cycle, to reclaim your power. The first step is always the hardest, but it is also the most liberating. Once you prove to yourself that you can act in spite of resistance, you begin to rewrite your story. You are no longer stuck, you are in motion, and that is where transformation begins.
Discipline is the cornerstone of all personal growth.
It is the silent force that transforms fleeting intentions into lasting results. While motivation may spark the initial desire to change, it is discipline that sustains you through the inevitable storms of doubt, fatigue, and distraction. Discipline is not about punishment or deprivation. It is about making a promise to yourself and keeping it, regardless of how you feel in the moment. It is the unwavering commitment to act in alignment with your values and goals, even when every part of you wants to take the easy way out. Personal growth is not a product of grand gestures or occasional bursts of effort. It is built in the quiet, often unseen moments when you choose discipline over comfort. It is forged in the early mornings when you rise before the world, in the late nights when you push through exhaustion, in the countless decisions to show up, to persist, to do the work even when no one is watching. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. It is the daily act of choosing your future over your feelings, your purpose over your preferences. The power of discipline lies in its compounding effect. Each act of discipline, no matter how small, strengthens your self-control and builds your confidence. Over time, these small acts accumulate, creating a foundation of trust in yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who can be counted on, someone who does not break under pressure. This self-trust is the fuel for even greater growth, enabling you to take on bigger challenges and pursue more ambitious goals. Discipline is not innate, it is cultivated. It is a skill that can be developed by anyone willing to practice it consistently. The key is to start small, to set clear intentions, and to follow through, even when it is inconvenient. The more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes. What once required immense effort becomes automatic. What once felt like sacrifice becomes a source of pride. In the end, discipline is not about restriction. It is about freedom. The freedom to live life on your own terms, to pursue your highest potential, to become the person you were meant to be. Embrace discipline, and you will unlock the door to limitless growth.
Overthinking is the silent thief of progress. It disguises itself as preparation, as caution, as wisdom, but in reality, it is nothing more than a sophisticated form of procrastination. The mind spins in circles, analyzing every possible outcome, searching for certainty where none exists. The result is paralysis, a state where ideas multiply but action disappears. The longer you stay trapped in thought, the more intimidating the task becomes, and the further you drift from the life you want to build. The antidote to overthinking is action, no matter how small. The moment you take a step, you break the mental loop that keeps you stuck. Action creates clarity. It gives you feedback, reveals what works and what doesn't, and transforms vague fears into manageable challenges. You do not need to have the entire path mapped out before you begin. You only need to move. The first step is always the hardest, but it is also the most liberating. It shifts your focus from what might go wrong to what you can do right now. To stop overthinking, shrink the problem until it is small enough to act on today. If the task feels overwhelming, break it down. Ask yourself, what is the next smallest step I can take? Then do it immediately, without debate. The goal is not to solve everything at once, but to build momentum through consistent movement. Each small action chips away at the mountain of doubt, making the next step easier. Over time, you train your mind to value progress over perfection, to seek solutions instead of excuses. It is important to recognize that overthinking is a habit, not a personality trait. It can be unlearned. The more you practice moving in the face of uncertainty, the more natural it becomes. You begin to trust yourself, to believe that you can handle whatever comes next. This self-trust is the foundation of confidence. It is not built by thinking, but by doing. The world rewards those who act,
not those who wait for perfect clarity. If you want to escape the prison of overthinking, you must become a person of action. Start small, start messy, but start now. The answers you seek are waiting for you on the other side of movement. Hesitation is the gap between intention and action, a tiny window where dreams are either realized or lost. In those first few seconds after you decide to do something, your mind races to protect you from discomfort, risk, or change. It floods you with reasons to wait, to reconsider, to stay safe. If you do not move quickly, hesitation hardens into inaction, and another opportunity slips away. The 5-second rule is a simple but powerful tool to break this cycle. When you feel the impulse to act on a goal, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move before your mind talks you out of it. This rule works because it interrupts the habit of overthinking. It gives you a brief moment to override your brain's default setting of safety and step into the unknown. The countdown is a trigger, a mental cue that signals it's time to act, not analyze. It doesn't matter if you feel ready. It doesn't matter if you're nervous. What matters is that you move before hesitation has a chance to build momentum. The 5-second rule is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about building a bias for action, a habit of doing rather than delaying. The most successful people are not immune to hesitation. They simply refuse to let it dictate their behavior. They understand that action must come before confidence, that clarity is earned through movement, not contemplation. By acting within those first 5 seconds, you train yourself to trust your instincts, to value momentum over comfort, to become someone who moves when it matters most. This habit compounds over time, turning small acts of courage into a lifestyle of decisive action. The beauty of the 5-second rule is its simplicity. You don't need special skills, resources, or motivation. All you need is the willingness to act before your mind sabotages your progress. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes. You start to notice the moments when hesitation creeps in, and you learn to respond with movement instead of excuses. This is how you reclaim your time, your focus, and your power. The 5-second rule is not just a trick, it's a discipline. It's a way of living that puts you back in control of your destiny, one decision at a time.
Planning is essential, but it is not a substitute for action. Too many people fall into the trap of endless preparation, mistaking movement on paper for progress in life. They create elaborate schedules, set detailed goals, and research every possible angle, believing that if they just plan enough, success will be guaranteed. But the truth is, no plan survives first contact with reality. The world is unpredictable, and the only way to learn, adapt, and grow is by doing, not just thinking. Action is the great teacher. It exposes flaws in your strategy, reveals strengths you didn't know you had, and provides feedback that no amount of planning can offer. When you act, you gain real-world experience. You discover what works and what doesn't. You learn to adjust, to pivot, to improve. Planning can only take you so far. It is action that turns ideas into results. The most successful people understand this. They do not wait for the perfect plan. They start with what they have, learn as they go, and refine their approach through consistent effort. The danger of over-planning is that it creates a false sense of security. It allows you to feel productive without ever taking a risk. It keeps you in your comfort zone, safe from failure, but also safe from growth. The longer you plan without acting, the more intimidating the first step becomes. Doubt creeps in, and the gap between intention and execution widens. Eventually, you become a master of preparation and a novice at progress. To break this cycle, you must shift your focus from perfect plans to imperfect action. Start before you feel ready. Move before you have all the answers.
Trust that you will figure things out along the way. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates opportunities that planning alone can never provide. The world rewards those who do, not those who only dream. If you want to achieve anything meaningful, you must become a person of action. Use planning as a tool, not a crutch. Let it guide you, but never let it replace the courage to move. In the end, it is not the best plan that wins. It is the person who acts, learns, and adapts faster than anyone else.
Open-ended goals are the silent killers of progress. They sound ambitious and inspiring, but without clear boundaries, they become nothing more than vague wishes. I want to get fit. I want to be successful. I want to write a book. These statements may ignite a spark of excitement, but without a finish line, they quickly fade into the background noise of daily life. The mind needs clarity. It needs to know what winning looks like and when the game is over. Without that, your goals become moving targets, always out of reach, always easy to postpone, always easy to abandon. The danger of open-ended goals is that they create no urgency. When there is no deadline, there is no pressure to act. You can always start tomorrow, next week, or next year. This lack of urgency breeds procrastination and allows excuses to multiply. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before you know it, another year has passed with nothing to show for your intentions. The absence of a clear target also makes it impossible to measure progress. You never know if you're getting closer or further away, and this uncertainty erodes motivation and self-belief. To escape this trap, you must transform your open-ended goals into specific, actionable commitments. I will go to the gym 3 times a week for the next 90 days. I will write 500 words every morning before work. I will save $5,000 by the end of the year. These goals have edges, they have deadlines, numbers, and clear criteria for success. They create a sense of urgency and focus your energy on what matters most. When you know exactly what you're aiming for and when it must be done, your mind shifts from dreaming to doing. The most disciplined people in the world are not necessarily the most talented. They are the most specific. They set clear targets, create real deadlines, and hold themselves accountable to the finish line. This structure is not restrictive, it is liberating. It frees you from the anxiety of uncertainty and gives you the satisfaction of measurable progress. If you want to turn your dreams into reality, you must give them shape, form, and a ticking clock. The danger of open-ended goals is real, but so is the power of decisive action. Set your target, define your deadline, and move with purpose. That is how you turn intentions into achievements.
Deadlines are the unsung heroes of achievement. They transform vague intentions into urgent priorities, turning someday into now. Without deadlines, even the most passionate goals drift into the background, lost in the noise of daily distractions. Pressure, when harnessed correctly, is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. It sharpens your focus, eliminates procrastination, and forces you to confront the reality of your commitments. The difference between a wish and a result is often nothing more than a date on the calendar and the willingness to honor it. The power of a deadline lies in its ability to create urgency. When you know exactly when something must be finished, your mind stops treating it as optional. You begin to prioritize, to plan, to act with intention. The pressure of a looming deadline silences the inner critic and drowns out the lazy voice that whispers, "You can do it later." Suddenly, distractions lose their appeal and excuses become harder to justify. You enter a state of focused execution, where every action is measured against the clock and every moment counts. Pressure is often misunderstood. Many people fear it, associating it with stress and anxiety. But pressure, in its healthiest form, is simply the force that moves you from intention to action.
It is the invisible hand that pushes you to deliver, to finish, to follow through. The most disciplined individuals do not shy away from pressure, they seek it out. They set ambitious deadlines, announce their goals publicly, and create accountability that makes quitting uncomfortable. They understand that without pressure, there is no progress. The key is to use deadlines as a tool, not a weapon. Set realistic but challenging targets. Break big goals into smaller milestones, each with its own finish line. Celebrate each victory, no matter how small, and let the momentum carry you forward. When you consistently meet your deadlines, you build self-respect and trust in your own word. You become someone who delivers, not just someone who dreams. The power of deadlines and pressure is transformative. It turns potential into performance, ideas into outcomes, and hope into history. If you want to achieve more than you ever thought possible, embrace the pressure of a real deadline and let it pull the best out of you.
Your body is the vessel that carries your dreams, your ambitions, and your energy. Yet most people neglect this vessel, allowing it to become sluggish, tired, and weak through inactivity. They sit for hours, drained not by action, but by inaction. When you do not use your body with purpose, you lose the energy, clarity, and strength that your goals demand. Doing something physical every day is not just about looking good, it is about waking up fully, being present, and reminding yourself that you are capable of more than just sitting and watching life pass by. You do not need to become an athlete or have a gym membership. You need action, movement, and the willingness to push yourself, not for appearance, but for performance, mental strength, and discipline. When you move your body, you shift your mind. The fog lifts, the tension releases, and the excuses get quieter. You feel alive again.
Self-trust is the foundation upon which all achievement is built. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you will do what you say, that your word is not just a hope, but a promise. Yet for many, self-trust is fragile, eroded by years of broken commitments, delayed starts, and abandoned goals. Every time you say you'll do something and fail to follow through, you chip away at your own belief in yourself. Over time, this creates a silent but powerful barrier to progress. If you cannot trust your own word, how can you expect to build anything lasting? The path to rebuilding self-trust is simple, but it is not easy. It begins with the smallest of promises. When you say you'll wake up early, do it. When you commit to a workout, show up. When you set a deadline, meet it. Self-trust is the foundation upon which all achievement is built. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you will do what you say, that your word is not just a hope, but a promise. Yet for many, self-trust is fragile, eroded by years of broken commitments, delayed starts, and abandoned goals. Every time you say you'll do something and fail to follow through, you chip away at your own belief in yourself. Over time, this creates a silent but powerful barrier to progress. If you cannot trust your own word, how can you expect to build anything lasting? The path to rebuilding self-trust is simple, but it is not easy. It begins with the smallest of promises. When you say you'll wake up early, do it. When you commit to a workout, show up. When you set a deadline, meet it. These acts may seem insignificant, but they are the bricks that rebuild the foundation of your confidence. Each time you follow through, you send a message to your subconscious. I am reliable. I am disciplined. I am someone who finishes what I start. This is how you transform your identity from a dreamer to a doer. Follow-through is not about perfection. You will stumble. You will have days when you fall short. But what matters is that you get back up and keep your word more often than you break it. Consistency is the key. The more you honor your commitments, the easier it becomes. What once required effort becomes automatic. What once felt like a struggle
becomes a source of pride. Over time, you begin to trust yourself again, not because you never fail, but because you always return to the path. Self-trust is the engine of momentum. It gives you the courage to set bigger goals, to take bolder risks, to pursue dreams that once felt out of reach. When you know you can count on yourself, you stop waiting for external validation. You stop seeking permission. You become your own source of strength. The world is full of people who talk about what they will do. Be the person who does it. Build your self-trust, one promise at a time, and you will unlock a level of power and freedom that few ever experience. In the end, your life will rise or fall to the level of trust you have in yourself. Make it unbreakable.
In the pursuit of greatness, it is easy to overlook the power of small wins. We are conditioned to chase big breakthroughs, to seek dramatic transformations, to believe that only monumental achievements matter. But the truth is, every mountain is climbed one step at a time, and every lasting change is built on a foundation of tiny victories. Small wins are the fuel that keeps you moving forward when the journey feels endless. They are the proof that progress is possible, even when the finish line seems far away. Small wins matter because they create momentum. Each time you complete a task, no matter how minor, you experience a surge of accomplishment. This feeling is not trivial. It is the spark that ignites further action. The brain is wired to seek reward, and every small win delivers a dose of motivation that makes the next step easier. Over time, these wins accumulate, compounding into habits, routines, and ultimately a new identity. You become someone who finishes what they start, someone who can be trusted to follow through, someone who is always moving forward. The beauty of small wins is that they are always within reach. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. You can create a win today by doing something simple. Making the call you've been avoiding, writing the first paragraph of your book, going for a 10-minute walk, or organizing your workspace. These actions may seem insignificant in isolation, but together they build the scaffolding of success. They teach you that progress is not about giant leaps, but about steady, consistent movement. Celebrating small wins is not about lowering your standards. It is about recognizing the value of persistence. It is about honoring the process, not just the outcome. When you learn to appreciate each step, you make the journey itself rewarding. This mindset keeps you engaged, resilient, and optimistic even when setbacks occur. The most successful people in the world are not those who never fail, but those who never stop moving. They understand that every small win is a victory over inertia, a step away from stagnation, and a step closer to their goals. If you want to build a life of achievement, start by stacking small wins. Let them build your confidence, your discipline, and your momentum. Over time, you will look back and realize that those tiny victories were the building blocks of your greatest successes.
Success is not just about willpower. It is about designing your life so that the right actions become the default. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because quitting is too easy and starting is too hard. When the path to progress is filled with friction, every excuse becomes a valid reason to stop. But when you reverse this equation, when you make it harder to quit and easier to start, you set yourself up for unstoppable momentum. Making quitting hard begins with accountability. Tell someone about your goal, set a public deadline, put money on the line. When there are real consequences for giving up, your mind thinks twice before surrendering to comfort. The fear of embarrassment, the weight of a promise, or the sting of a financial loss can be powerful motivators. The most disciplined people in the world do not rely solely on internal strength. They build external systems that make quitting costly. They remove the option to back out quietly and force themselves to face the discomfort of follow-through.
At the same time, you must make starting as frictionless as possible. Prepare your environment in advance. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Keep your workspace clean and ready. Break big tasks into tiny, manageable steps so that the first move requires almost no effort. The less thinking and preparation it takes to begin, the more likely you are to act. This is not about laziness, it is about understanding human nature. The brain resists change, but it loves simplicity. When you make the first step easy, you bypass resistance and build momentum before your mind can object. Track your progress visibly. Use a calendar, a journal, or an app to record every day you show up. When you see a chain of effort, you become invested in not breaking it. The longer your streak, the harder it is to quit. This visual proof of commitment turns effort into identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who persists, someone who does not give up easily. Ultimately, success is about engineering your life for action. Remove the barriers to starting, raise the cost of quitting, build systems that support your goals, not just your intentions. When you make it easier to move forward than to turn back, you transform discipline from a struggle into a habit. That is how you create a life where progress is not just possible, but inevitable.
Your environment is the silent architect of your behavior. It shapes your habits, influences your decisions, and determines how easy or difficult it is to take action. Most people underestimate the power of their surroundings, believing that willpower alone is enough to drive change. But the truth is, even the strongest resolve can be worn down by a poorly designed environment. If you want to make progress inevitable, you must become intentional about the spaces you inhabit and the cues you allow into your daily life. Start by removing friction from the actions you want to take. If you want to read more, keep books within arm's reach. If you want to eat healthier, fill your kitchen with nutritious options and keep junk food out of sight. If you want to exercise, set up your gear the night before and make your workout space inviting. The easier it is to start, the more likely you are to follow through. Your environment should make the right choice the path of least resistance. Equally important is adding friction to the habits you want to break. If you want to spend less time on your phone, delete distracting apps or keep your device in another room while you work. If you want to stop wasting time online, use website blockers or set strict time limits. Make it inconvenient to indulge in behaviors that pull you away from your goals. The harder it is to quit, the more likely you are to stay on track. Surround yourself with reminders of your commitments. Use sticky notes, alarms, or visual trackers to keep your goals front and center. Let your environment reflect your priorities, not your distractions. The people you spend time with are also part of your environment. Seek out those who challenge you, support your growth, and hold you accountable. Distance yourself from those who encourage complacency or undermine your ambitions. Remember, your environment is not fixed, it is a tool you can shape. Every change you make, no matter how small, sends a signal to your brain about what matters. Over time, these signals compound, making discipline easier and progress more automatic. The most successful people do not rely on willpower alone. They design their lives for success. They build environments that make the right actions easy and the wrong actions difficult. If you want to change your life, start by changing your surroundings. Make your environment your ally and watch your habits and your results transform.
Consistency is the engine that drives all meaningful progress, and routine is its most reliable fuel. While motivation may come and go, a well-crafted routine stands firm, guiding your actions even on days when your energy is low and your mind is clouded with doubt. Routine is not about rigidity or monotony. It is about creating a structure that supports your highest priorities and makes success automatic.
When you build your life around intentional routines, you remove the daily debate about what to do next. You simply follow the path you have already chosen. A powerful routine is more than a checklist. It is a declaration of your values. It is a daily commitment to show up for yourself, to honor your goals, and to invest in your future. The most successful people in any field are not those who rely on bursts of inspiration, but those who have built routines that carry them through both the highs and the lows. They wake up at the same time, start their day with purpose, and protect their most important habits from the chaos of the outside world. This consistency compounds, turning small daily actions into extraordinary long-term results. The beauty of routine is that it reduces the need for willpower. When your actions become automatic, you no longer waste energy deciding whether or not to do the work. You simply do it, because that is what you do. This frees up mental space for creativity, problem-solving, and growth. It also provides a sense of stability in an unpredictable world. No matter what challenges arise, your routine is an anchor, a source of control and confidence. To build an effective routine, start small. Identify the actions that matter most and give them a fixed place in your day. Protect these actions fiercely, treating them as non-negotiable appointments with your future self. Over time, layer in new habits as the old ones become second nature. Adjust your routine as your goals evolve, but never abandon the structure that keeps you moving forward. Routine is not the enemy of freedom, it is the foundation of it. When you automate the right actions, you create space for spontaneity, creativity, and joy. You become someone who can be counted on by others and, most importantly, by yourself. In the end, it is not what you do occasionally that shapes your life, but what you do consistently. Build a routine that reflects your highest standards and let it carry you to the life you desire.
The most powerful force in personal growth is not a single act of greatness, but the compounding effect of small, daily actions. Just as money grows exponentially through compound interest, your habits, discipline, and results multiply when you show up every day, even in the smallest ways. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a day and underestimate what they can achieve in a year of consistent effort. The secret to extraordinary success is not found in grand gestures, but in the relentless repetition of simple, purposeful actions. Every day you take action, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Each workout, each page written, each promise kept is a brick in the foundation of your future. These actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they accumulate into something unstoppable. The compounding effect works both ways. Positive actions build momentum and confidence, while repeated inaction or negative habits erode your self-belief and progress. This is why consistency is more important than intensity. It is better to do a little every day than to do a lot once in a while and then stop. The compounding effect also applies to your mindset. Every time you override the lazy voice, every time you act before you feel ready, you strengthen your mental resilience. You teach yourself that you are capable of more than you thought. This self-trust grows with each decision, making it easier to take the next step and the next, until action becomes your default response to challenge. Over time, you become the kind of person who does not hesitate, who does not quit, who does not wait for permission to move forward. The beauty of the compounding effect is that it is always working, whether you notice it or not. The results may not be visible at first, but with patience and persistence, the breakthrough always comes. One day, you look back and realize how far you have come, not because of one massive effort, but because of thousands of small, consistent actions. This is the true magic of daily discipline. It transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. If you want to change your life, commit to daily action.
Let the compounding effect work for you and watch as your efforts multiply into results beyond your imagination. The ultimate transformation in life is becoming a doer, a person whose actions speak louder than their intentions, whose results are a reflection of relentless movement, not empty promises. Living as a doer means you no longer wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, or external validation. You have learned that action is the only currency that buys progress, and you spend it every day. This identity is not built overnight. It is forged in the fires of discipline, consistency, and the refusal to let excuses dictate your destiny. A doer is not someone who never feels fear, doubt, or fatigue. They are someone who moves forward anyway. They understand that feelings are fleeting, but the consequences of inaction last far longer. They have trained themselves to act before their mind talks them out of it, to show up when it is hardest, and to finish what they start. This is not about perfection, it is about persistence. It is about making progress, no matter how small, every single day. Living as a doer transforms every area of your life. Your confidence grows, not because you never fail, but because you always return to the path. Your relationships improve because you become someone others can rely on. Your goals become reality, not because you are lucky, but because you are relentless. You stop being a spectator in your own life and become the main character, the one who shapes their story through action. The world is full of talkers, planners, and dreamers, but it is the doers who change things, who build legacies, who inspire others to rise. When you choose to live as a doer, you give yourself the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that your life is in your hands. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstance, emotion, or the opinions of others. You are the architect of your destiny. This is the ultimate transformation. It is not a destination, but a way of living, a commitment to action, to growth, to never letting a day pass without moving forward. When you live as a doer, you become unstoppable. You become the person you always knew you could be. And that is how you change your life, one action at a time.